Disney Plus Day was this past Friday, and we finally got some first looks at some new upcoming Marvel Disney Plus projects, along with some unexpected announcements. So today we'll talk about them, all of them. I'm trying to not make this too long, so if you enjoy this video, feel free to like and subscribe for future Marvel content. So first, I'll go through all of the Marvel announcements made along with their logos, which will include some that we've seen before. So the new announcements consisted of X-Men the Animated Series coming back in 2023, the officially announced What If Season 2, a live-action Echo series, an animated series Spider-Man Freshman Year, a live-action Agatha House of Harkness, an animated Marvel Zombie series, and then continuing, there are some things that they mentioned but we already knew about, such as the animated series I Am Groot, and then the live-action Ironheart series, including some first looks at the series for Moonknight, She-Hulk, Ms. Marvel, and Secret Invasion. Now, in this video, I'll only be showing pictures of the sneak peeks of Moonknight, She-Hulk, Ms. Marvel, and Secret Invasion, because I honestly don't want to go through the copyright with Disney right now, but we did get a very little taste of these series that you can go see for yourself in the Marvel section of Disney Plus, labeled for Disney Plus Day, and it's about 15 minutes long. Because they were able to show us these teasers, it also means hopefully actual trailers aren't too far behind, especially seeing as how some of these series were originally supposed to come out early next year, but we will see exactly when. So all of the teasers looked great, and in an attempt not to have this video be super long, I won't go super in-depth as to what every single series is meant to be, but we'll start with Moonknight. So Moonknight is about a man named Mark Spector, who in the comics was a mercenary who was left for dead, but seemingly he was saved by the moon god Khonshu, and he became a vigilante in the name of Khonshu. However, a lot of comic book stories with him deal with him having a kind of dissociative personality or identity disorder, where he essentially has multiple personalities and actually makes the reader question whether or not the moon god Khonshu is or was even real to begin with, or if it was just another one of his personalities or not. She-Hulk, known as Jennifer Walters, is the cousin of Bruce Banner and is a lawyer who, because of her line of work, got shot by a criminal who was against her, and she needed a blood transfusion that was provided by Bruce. As a result, from Bruce's irradiated blood, she turned into She-Hulk. She maintains her intelligence a lot easier than Bruce was able to with the Hulk, and she usually actually prefers to stay in her green hulked out form all the time. Kamala Khan is a teenager who in the comics got affected by the Terrigen bomb and turned into Inhuman with polymorphic abilities such as being able to stretch like Mr. Fantastic. And I'm not going to quite go into what an Inhuman is if you're kind of unaware. I don't think in the MCU she is going to be an Inhuman, but Inhumans are kind of like X-Men. They're kind of like store brand X-Men, kind of like they were people who had this inhuman ability or inhuman gene inside of them, and then a Terrigen bomb went off, and basically whoever was affected by the Terrigen bomb, if they had the inhuman stuff inside of them, it activated them and turned them into an Inhuman with their powers. So, but she becomes known as Ms. Marvel because of how big of a fan she is of Captain Marvel. So I will say, I already said that I don't think she's going to be an Inhuman in the MCU, but her MCU powers are already also looking very different. She seems to utilize kind of like crystals in some way, and might be able to do similar things. Like, she might still be able to do things like make her fists big, or extend her arms, so to speak, but it'll look like it might be in more Green Lantern fashion, where she's kind of like conjuring images of her fist and her arm, almost like how a spirit or a ghost would look, but it still would allow her to physically interact with people or things. If I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not entirely sure how to feel about this change. I think it's kind of one of the worst MCU decisions that have been made in recent years, but at the same time, I'm always going to reserve full judgment until I see what they do with it in the series. So, Secret Invasion is a Skrull invasion story where in the comics we find out Avengers and characters in general that we have come to know the whole time have secretly been Skrulls in disguise. So, this series in particular will star Nick Fury as the main character, and is one that this series in general is one that I'm definitely excited for the most because of the potential reveals they have in store for us. Because I can guarantee there will be at least a handful of characters who will be revealed to have been Skrulls the whole time. So I will say this as well, though. I'm not entirely sure how the story will go in the MCU because up until this point, the Skrulls have been portrayed as primarily good guys, and in the comics for this story, they were very much bad guys, not good guys. Now, to briefly cover some of the new topics in the series they announced, so some might be kind of more self-explanatory than others, such as What If Season 2 and Agatha House of Harkness, because we are already familiar with Agatha Harkness from WandaVision already, although I will say the House of Harkness title choice is interesting because given the House of M comic story, which is what everyone expected to want WandaVision to be, which is one of the biggest crucial storylines in Marvel Comics in regards to X-Men primarily. So it's kind of, the word choice is really interesting, like how House of Harkness, House of M. There has to obviously be a connection there, especially with WandaVision. So there will also be an animated Marvel Zombie series, which is also pretty self-explanatory because, I mean, we've already seen Marvel Zombies in What If, although I haven't seen anywhere that confirms if it takes place as a continuation of that What If episode, but in my opinion, that only makes sense because it's what we're already introduced to. I Am Groot is an animated series as well, which I believed is actually meant to be a canon Groot story that takes place when he is a baby in between Guardians Volume 2 and Infinity War. So they also announced an animated Spider-Man series called Spider-Man Freshman Year. So what I find particularly interesting about this one is that this show will be MCU canon, and it will actually tell the origin story of our MCU Peter Parker. It'll just be in animated form. So I honestly don't mind that Marvel makes animated things canon, because I think it allows them to slightly expand their universe more and give us more content on the side at what is most likely a much cheaper cost than it would be for live action. So I actually like them making animated things canon more often. The live action Echo series that was announced will follow the character Maya Lopez, known as Echo, who has abilities similar to that of Taskmaster, of being able to mirror combat and fighting abilities. So in the comics, her father was killed by Kingpin, who is a big Daredevil and Spider-Man villain who you might have seen in the Daredevil Netflix series or into the Spider-Verse, or the Spider-Man PlayStation game. So what's really exciting about this announcement is if we haven't gotten introduced to Daredevil by then, this show will more than likely guarantee he is in it, along with Kingpin. I will add real quick, though, it is rumored that Kingpin will make an appearance in Hawkeye towards the end, and might supposedly still be played by the same actor who he was in the Netflix series, although none of the Netflix series are meant to be canon to the MCU according to a bunch of different sources. Ironheart was previously announced already, but they reminded us of it, so I'll kind of touch up on it real quick. So this series will follow Riri Williams, who is a genius teenager who in the comics gets a hold of an old Iron Man suit and is able to reverse engineer Tony Stark's technology and make it her own, and she takes on the hero mantle as Ironheart. She is also supposed to be a part of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which is Black Panther 2. So in my opinion, I've saved the best for last, which is the revival of the X-Men animated series. Now, I'm excited for this for multiple reasons. The first one, obviously, being that the old school X-Men animated series was extremely dope, and the fact that they are continuing it all these years later is just amazing by itself. But this one of the other reasons why I am excited for this, it is the first tangible piece of Disney Marvel content that is completely related to the X-Men and the X-Men alone, which has me extremely hyped. Obviously, the X-Men animated series won't be MCU canon, but the fact that we are actually getting X-Men content coming confirmed in the not so distant future is exciting, and I can't wait for it, honestly. And I know Kevin Feige has said before that mutants are coming to the MCU, but my point is we haven't gotten tangible MCU X-Men content yet, and this is the first piece that we've seen. So, I mean, in general, that about wraps up all of the Marvel Disney Plus announcements, and it's honestly just crazy how much Marvel is going to expand the MCU on their streaming service alone. Sometimes I think it's a double-edged sword because I personally don't think, like, they expand their universe on Disney Plus, which is obviously great, but I also at the same time think that some stuff that's mentioned in the Disney Plus shows won't be brought up as much in the movies because they don't want to confuse maybe general audiences who might not have Disney Plus, but that's just how I feel personally. We haven't really seen a huge crossover quite yet, except for spoiler warning for Black Widow. In the post-credit scene for Black Widow, we obviously saw Val, who was from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier and stuff like that. So it's honestly, we'll see how much they continue to do it, but go ahead and comment which announcement you thought was the dopest, and I appreciate you for watching the video.